So by a raise of hands, who heard about OpenTofu? That's nice. Okay. So OpenTofu is an open source infrastructure as code tool driven by the community. It's a fork of Terraform, and it supports all Terraform providers, modules, and configuration. And as a community and project, we value openness, transparency, and collaboration. So our journey started back in August 2023. That's when HashiCorp decided to change the license of Terraform to BUSL. And the founders of OpenTofu decided to create a manifesto asking HashiCorp to change their decision. That didn't really happen, and that's how OpenTofu was born. In September 2023, we became a part of the Linux Foundation, and we released our first GA 1.6 in January 2024. Ever since then, we kept working on new releases, working on OpenTofu Days as part of the KubeCon OpenTofu KubeCon co-located events. Currently, we have the stable release of OpenTofu 1.9 that we released in January. So on the right side of the screen, you can see our manifesto and supporters. We are a project with over 25K stars and GitHubs and 164 contributors and multiple different companies like JFrog, Oracle, and GitLab added support of OpenTofu to their different products. So as an growing open source project, the first thing we did was try to listen to the community and understand what are the pain points, what people have been experiencing for years. And lots of things, like we heard them over and over. So the first thing was security. There's no native solution for state encryption, and the state may include sensitive secrets. When it comes to flexibility, there are no simple methods of managing environment configuration between different environments, like development, integration, and production. In resource management, there was a need to exclude resources during deployment. And when it comes to customization, when we want to deploy different resources across multiple regions, we had a very painful experience with that. So hello, I'm Ronny Orot. I'm part of I was part of the OpenTofu core team, and also currently on my last month as part of a software engineer in N0. And after sipping some coconuts in Thailand, I will search my next adventure. So this is my LinkedIn. If you have something interesting, ping me. So today we'll talk about 4 main features: state encryption, early evaluation, the exclude flag, and provider iteration. Let's start with state encryption. But the first thing I want is that we'll actually understand the problem that this feature tries to solve. So I added a screenshot of the RDS Aurora module. It's from a OpenTofu registry UI, currently in beta, but you can play with it. It's quite nice. And as part of this module, we have a very long list of inputs, but I am taking some shortcuts and showing you the one that we actually care about. It's the master password. And when we read the first lines of the description, password for the master database user, note that this may show up in logs and it will be stored in the state file. Also, jumping up ahead, when I'll take this module and apply it using OpenTofu, and I'll take a look at the Terraform state that I have, I can see that the master password is actually saved in my state in plain text. I think it's very obvious it's very simple to understand how harmful this can be when it falls into the wrong hands. So let's see how we solve this issue. So now inside the Terraform block, we have an encryption block. And inside it, we can declare some kind of a key provider. In here, I use AWS KMS. Basically, it will generate my key. I need to set up my encryption method, And the third step is to actually say what I want to encrypt. I can encrypt the state, but I can also encrypt the output of the plan. And when I'll run tofu apply, OpenTofu will encrypt my state file. Very, very easy. To the next feature, early evaluation. So my background is software engineer, but at some certain point in my career, I was also a platform engineer. And I had a lot of hardship when I wanted to promote configuration between different environments. So the most common kind of example that I saw online was creating different configuration files for different environments. And here it's dev and production. And for me, as a developer, I want the exact code, the exact infrastructure as code to be promoted between environments. And this didn't really work for me. But there were some hacks that made this possible. So let's take a look at them. So in here, we see our configuration files. I have two different backend configuration, each for a different environment. And when I take a look at each of them, I can see that I have a different bucket set in each file. When I want to run this code, then I'll have to run the tofu init command and inject the backend config, the correct backend config per environment. But also, what happens if I want to have some different variables per environment, right? Then when I'll reach the apply stage, I'll actually have to inject also the correct variable. And this mix and match, if we accidentally mix and match the wrong backend configuration and the wrong variables, it can cause a big mess in our infrastructure. And if only I could have, I can declare this variable and use it inside my backend configuration, then I will be able to use a single backend configuration. And that's exactly what the early evaluation feature allows us to do. Now we can declare locals and variables and use them in ways and places that we couldn't before. And one of them is the backend block. So now we have a single backend configuration. Inside, I set this variable called env. I also have a map, env to bucket, a map of my environment to the name of the bucket. And I can use this local and variable to actually set up the correct bucket in my backend configuration. And when we look at the instructions now and the commands I actually need to use to run, then I always need to provide the variable, but it's the same variable between the init command and the apply command. Okay, to our third feature. So let's take a quick look at this configuration. It's very, very basic. We have free resources. If I'll run tofu apply, OpenTofu will create or update those resources. But what happens if I have a very big configuration and I only want to update or create a specific resource? So today, Terraform and OpenTofu has the target flag, and I can actually point to a specific resource and say, OK, only apply this resource, the first resource. But what happens when we want to do the other way around? I want to exclude the third resource, but I still want to deploy the first and second resource. And this was the most requested feature in Terraform ever for years. So we decided to implement it, obviously. And how we did that? So we introduced a new flag. It's called the Exclude flag. And as you can see in this example, I run this command and I deploy the first resource and the second resource and exclude the third resource. This was a very anticipated feature, so there were lots of happy comments when it was released. Thank you. And let's talk about our last feature, provider iteration. By a show of hands, who ever had to deploy multiple resources across multi-region architecture, maybe for disaster recovery? Yeah, okay. So before OpenTofu 1.9, this feature was released in also the Exclude, they were released in OpenTofu 1.9. It was possible, but quite a hassle. We had to declare 2 different provider blocks, each specifying its own region. And when we wanted to create an identical resource per environment, per region, sorry, then we actually had to duplicate the resource block and indicate on which region it will exist in. What happens now? So now we are utilizing the for each syntax that already existed in the language but never existed inside the provider block. But we're utilizing that to actually create multiple instances of the provider, each looking at a specific region. So we need to only declare the provider block once. And also, we're using the same for each syntax, and we can declare the resource only for a single time. This also works not only for resources, also we can see here we have a single module block. We're using the for each syntax to iterate over the different regions. Okay, so we talked about 4 different features, but I think one of the things that as an OpenTofu developer, we're working a lot on compatibility with Terraform. So I don't know if you know it, but OpenTofu remains almost completely compatible with Terraform. It's like, I hear it's a bit of a misconception that I keep hearing, that people don't know that Terraform providers and Terraform modules are completely supported by OpenTofu, okay? And also, the configuration is almost 100% compatible. There are a few exceptions, but they are very well documented in our migration guides in our website. It's also important to mention that we keep working actively on remaining compatible. And you can see lots of features that we developed over the years, and those are just a few. We have the remove block, we have the provider defined function, for each on import blocks, testing feature. All those features were released on new Terraform versions and are also supported in OpenTofu. So let's sum up what we talked about. We talked about 4 different features that were heavily requested by the community: state encryption, early evaluation, the exclude flag, and provider iteration. And we also talked about the compatibility of OpenTofu with Terraform. The last thing I want you to take from this talk is, if something bothers you, if you are trying to do something, you have some kind of use case, go to the OpenTofu repository, open an issue. We have lots of open issues already, and vote for the issues that are painful to you, because we're actually basing our roadmap based on that. We have this cool aggregating top issue that we aggregate all the upvotes. Whoop. And what I wanted to show you here, that as part of OpenTofu 1.10, we're already released in our alpha support for OCI registries for providers and modules, and like running Terraform S3 backend without a DynamoDB. You can join our Slack. Thank you. You can join our Slack, and we are always available there for questions and whatever you want. And please rate this talk if you want to. And thank you very much. I had a great time. Thanks for having me.